Okay, the Oil for Food program was another one. Now, as I said, Australia was involved in this because our Australian Wheat Board was found to be one of the companies that was, well, it was a company, was paying kickbacks. Arguably, the Australian government knew about it. You can go through the coal report. Absolutely everything was on the website. You can get all of the documents, the emails that were sent and so forth. A colleague of mine, it's a 30-year career public servant, worked for Prime Minister and Cabinet for a long time. He's been through it and he said there is no way they did not know, but it was a case of don't tell us because we don't want to hear it, therefore we can say we don't know. So again, I think corruption's there. We know that Iraq was subjected to international sanctions, but to try and alleviate that for the people of Iraq, they instituted this Oil for Food program whereby the Iraqis could sell oil, and in return, instead of being paid, they were supposed to get vouchers to buy humanitarian goods. Unfortunately, even though it was set up otherwise, Iraq was able to choose who it bought the oil from. They were also able to determine a number of things like the prices, even though the UN initially, under the initial agreement, was supposed to oversee all of this. Apparently what they did, and this all comes from the Volcker report, that they chose companies and individuals that were friendly to Iraq and whose countries were permanent members of the Security Council. Now, it's interesting that they allowed Australia to sell wheat to them because Australia was part of the invasion force in Iraq, and a lot of people could not understand that. And that raised a lot of questions, particularly the Canadians, who were the first to sort of blow the whistle, because they could not figure out why an Australian company was selling wheat to Iraq and they could not get the business. And they were told quite bluntly, apparently, by an Australian that they weren't prepared to pay. So if they had friendly countries that were permanent members, and that meant that they may be able to influence the Security Council. They said the Russian and French companies were the favoured purchasers, and if you read the Volcker report, though, you will find that there are a lot of American companies there as well. In this subcommittee, Volcker came out and said it was tainted by corruption from the beginning, political considerations and incompetence from the very start. The UN did not monitor it. They said they didn't have the funds to do it. But it did come out that some people who were very high up in the UN were actually involved. So there was manipulation of the contracting practices. A lot of it did focus on the French and the Russians, but as I said, there were a lot of the Australian company, and there were also a number of American companies that were involved. They had rigged bidding, there's understaffing, ghost employees, just about anything and everything you can imagine that should have been picked up. It was not something that was difficult to do. And Volcker didn't get a lot of help in doing this inquiry, but was able to uncover quite a lot just on what he was able to get. Members of the UN, as I said, being involved, and this one particular person actually sold his vouchers to the nephew of someone else, and so there was a whole lot of corruption that was going on inside. Volcker was also criticised though, and so was the UN. So as they said, that I think Volcker's report was very detailed, quite a lot in there, but he did not hit at the UN, obviously because they hired him, I guess. But Volcker still has a very good reputation in this area. But the UN was given the benefit of the doubt, didn't pick independent committees, it allowed monopolies. The there was generally a lot of error in judgment, and one could say the same with Australia and their involvement in this. They said it a well-oiled spin machine, and we get all of this, the UN's this great thing, but the actual investigations have shown that there were a lot of problems in the UN. And I guess part of it being that they were being used, one report said that they were virtually being used as a post box. So instead of doing all the investigation that they were supposed to do, all they were doing, they were collecting the documents and then forwarding them on. Nobody ever looked at them to see what was happening. Said it had a huge credibility problem. They were handpicked by the UN, and his son was implicated in it as well. In the Australian context, as I said, there is every indication that the government knew that this was happening. It was reported to them. You've got copies of emails that are available on the website if you want to take a look. But the other thing is that with all the investigation, the huge amount of money that was paid for the investigation in Australia, no one's been charged, and they're not going to be. They've dropped it.